We begin with the education crisis here in Kenya, and Kenyan teachers have dismissed sacking threats by their employer, the Teacher Service Commission, and vowed to go on with the strike. The Kenya National Union of Teachers Chairman Mudzo Nzili has directed union officials in all the counties to meet at their respective offices to chart the way forward. The TSC had threatened to fire striking teachers if they failed to go back to work today.
I want to call upon all the branch leadership, and I want to call upon all members of the National Executive Council. Nataka niseme hapa kwamba tumechokozwa, tumevumilia kwa sababu tunaitaka hii nchi, tumeenda kisheria, lakini watu wengine wanatuonyesha udhalimu kwa kutoheshimu mahakama. Kwa hivyo kesho Jumatatu, walimu wote pale walipo msiende shule.
Our reporter on the ground, Michelle Ngele, is now joining us for another update on this developing story. Michelle?
Now, the teachers' strike enters its second week today, even as the pay dispute between the teachers' unions and the government continues. Now, if you remember last week, the Kenya National Union of Teachers issued an official strike notice for teachers across the country, urging teachers not to relent in their strike until the money, the 50 to 60% salary increment issued by the Supreme Court has been paid to their bank accounts. But this weekend, we saw the teachers' employer, the Teachers Service Commission, issue a stern warning that teachers who do not report to work by Monday today will face the sack. Now, the teachers' unions on their part say that these are tactics by the Teachers Service Commission to intimidate teachers. They refer to these tactics as old school and outdated, and they say that teachers will not go back to school. In fact, KUPPET Secretary General Akelo Misori dared the Teachers Service Commission to issue sacking letters to the teachers, saying that they are only exercising their constitutional rights by asking for the money that was issued by the Supreme Court, which is the highest court on the land. Now, I am at the Moi Avenue Primary School, and the situation is even worse than it was last week because there are no students here. All classes have been locked and there are no teachers in sight. And I am joined now by one of the teachers, Mr. Namaswa. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, the Teacher Service Commission gave us a stern notice that if teachers do not report to work, they will be sacked. Are you cowed by these tactics?
In the first place, I am the NAD sub-BCs in Sarai district. I was just passing around to see if we have any teachers around, and good luck, the teachers are God-fearing and they have actually decided to follow the voice of our Secretary General, Mr. Soshoni. There's no learning, as you can see around. There's no learning, as you can see around. First place, teachers are God-fearing. We fear God so much. And we like our work. We like our officials. We like TSC so much. But at this time, I'm talking to you, in the first place, I do not have powers to talk. But I'll just say because teachers cannot report back to work because they were instructed by their Secretary General, Soshoni. And it is only Brother Soshoni can come in open and declare that teachers should go back to work. We love our job, and we even ready back to go back to classes tomorrow. Only if Soshon tells us to do it, to go back. Secondly, we believe that a time comes when God thinks of rewarding people. If Kenya we have judiciary and the people respect judiciary, I don't think that the government would have delayed for us. The DSC will have taken all this time punishing the pupils, punishing the parents, punishing the teachers, waiting for no good reason when the judiciary clearly said that teachers should be given their increment. As a junior person, Mr. Namaswa, we're only waiting what Soshoni will tell us. And if Soshoni tells you go back to school, go back to school. But teachers will not go back to school when there's no an increment. And we are requesting our seniors, They should not frustrate teachers. They should not intimidate us, because we are the same people that have taught these people to be where they are. We are the same people that will be teaching these children tomorrow. We are the same people that the same teachers have taught all these Kenyan citizens you are seeing around, and we still remain there. We are leaving everything in the hands of God, and we believe that Jesus Christ, we believe that Allah will give us way, and our seniors will give in to pay us our increment.
Right. Thank you very much. Mr. Namaso there, reaffirming the stance that teachers are only asking for their constitutional right, which was issued by the Supreme Court, and he tells us that teachers will not go back to class until further instructed by NAT Secretary General Wilson Session. As for now, classes are locked, there are no students in class, and it seems to be an indefinite teachers strike that only the government can put an end to after they pay their teachers their money. Back to you in studio.
Unfortunate situations in our public schools. Now, the East African Legislative Assembly is working on ways to ensure member states are held accountable in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. The Assembly, which is meeting in Nairobi, says it will draft laws which will be forwarded to member states to guide the implementation of the goals. The SDGs, unlike the Millennium Development Goals, do not have an implementation timeline. The SDGs include emerging issues such as terrorism and are meant to be implemented by national governments. The East African Legislative Assembly wants national governments to sensitize the public on the goals and to budget for their achievements.
We must make sure there are legislations or laws that provide legal framework through which these goals will be implemented. Having put in place the laws, we shall have to make sure there is budget lines, resources available for the implementation of these goals. And having allocated the resources for that, we must make sure the resources are optimally utilized or deployed to make sure implementations are done. Cardinally, that is the role of Parliament. That's exactly what YAL is trying to do. But most importantly, why we are here. For all that to be done effectively, there is need for deep understanding of the SDGs. So what the parliamentarians are doing now is to acquaint with themselves with the goals and all that come along with.
President Uhuru Kenyatta is in Italy for a 4-day official visit, accompanied by the First Lady Margaret Kenyatta and a delegation from the tourism sector. The president will seek to promote Kenya's cultural and business opportunities. He arrived in Italy early this morning and will separately meet Prime Minister Matteo Renzi and President Sergio Mattarella at their official residences. The president will also be launching Kenya's new international brand at the Expo Milan 2015 in Milan City, Italy's financial and fashion hub. The event coincides with the Kenya Week at the Expo, where several activities ranging from a business forum and a culture day, all aimed to promote Kenya's image at the international arena, have been lined up.
A wonderful name. Yeah? Our ambassador, how are you? Well, how are you doing? Thank you very much. How are you, man? Yeah? Chief of the day. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here. Absolutely wonderful. How are you, Yaman? Excellent. How are you doing?
Right, moving on to other stories making headlines. Former Chief Registrar of the Judiciary Gladys Shulay, alongside 6 former judiciary officials, today appeared before the Anti-Corruption Magistrates Court in Nairobi. The 7 had petitioned the court to order the DPP and Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to give them the report of the criminal probe claims that was compiled by EACC that formed the basis of their trial. However, the court declined to order the DPP to supply them with the report after Senior Assistant DPP Njagi Nderitu said it will not be part of the evidence to be relied on by the prosecution during the trial. At the same time, defense lawyers Paul Ngarwa and Hiram Kago protested against the prosecution's delay to give them statements of witnesses in the case. Shulay is facing charges of abuse of office that led to her dismissal as Chief Registrar of the Judiciary. Right, moving on, Kenya is looking to more than triple land under irrigation in a move aimed at boosting the country's food security status. Speaking during the Israel-Kenya Agri-Technologies Expo, Water and Irrigation Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa notes that irrigation efforts have begun paying off. The first harvest for the 1 million acre Galana irrigation scheme slated for this week could significantly reduce the cost of maize flour.
Agriculture cannot satisfy the country's food needs, and Kenya has a very young and growing population, hence the need to expand irrigated agriculture to ensure national food security, creation of wealth and employment opportunities. The government of Kenya has targeted to increase the area under modern irrigation from the current 375,000 acres to 1,375,000 acres within 5 years. This is in line with our Vision 2030. We are already seeing this technology, as I've said, in Galana, and we are working very closely with the Green Arava. We are very happy with the progress made so far, but would also encourage and invite other companies from Israel to come and invest. It's a huge area of potential that we are looking at. The coastal region of Kenya suffers from acute shortage of water. The current water deficit in Mombasa alone is over 100,000 cubic meters per day. This is set to rise, as I said, because of the fast-growing population to over 134,000 cubic meters per day in the next 4 years. The other coastal towns of Kwale, Lamu, Kilifi and Ukunda have similar deficits, yet they are located right next to the vast Indian Ocean. As my ministry continues to work on the long-term solution to this supply challenge, there exists major investment opportunities on desalination as the only available medium-term solution for the coast region. Israel is world-renowned in this technology, and with falling cost, I believe water supply from this source will be affordable, especially by the hospitality and tourism industry at the coast.
The initial crop under the Galana Kulalu Food Security Project in the Kenyan coast is now ready for harvesting. Is the project that was launched by President Uhuru Kenyatta 1 year ago on course, and will the 1 million acre target that was promised be attained? Alex Chamwada reports.
The Galana Kulalu Food Security Project is located in 2 counties, Tana River and Kilifi. It is one of the key projects in the Jubilee government's manifesto. By road, one can access the area through Voi or Malindi towns. From Voi, you would have to cross the Galana River at this point. When it floods, this area becomes impassable. Galana Kulalu is in a semi-arid region. It is sparsely populated. This is how the land under irrigation looked before, deceivingly unsuitable for farming. Onto the model farm now, and this is what we found. Ready for harvesting, about 4 months after planting. Currently, the land under crop is 500 acres. Henry Ochere is the chief engineer in charge of the project.
We have stopped irrigating so that we let the maize dry up to moisture content between 12 and 13. That's when we are going to come with a combined harvester, harvest all the maize, shell it, and take it to the millers.
Here, 13 maize varieties have been tested. According to the National Irrigation Board, 6 have done well, but only 3 will be taken to the next planting season.
These 500 acres, we harvest it, we expect 40 bags per acre, and in total, it will give us about 20,000 bags. That translates to 1,800 metric tons.
Now, Kenyans know that the irrigation project ought to cover 1 million acres of land. The question is, where is the 1 million? And is the project sustainable?
When we start with Galana,
here, we are going basically to depend on River Galana. There are other sources of water we can depend on, but they are not quite feasible right now. So for Galana alone, we can do 20,000 acres with the natural flow which is in the river. But how do we achieve more than 20,000 acres? We have to dam the river, and that is already in the feasibility study which was done earlier. We do the 2 billion cubic meter dam. We shall be able to do 450,000 acres comfortably. The rest, to make it 1 million acres, we shall be able to do elsewhere within the country. There are several projects we are doing as National Irrigation Board.
The government of Kenya, through a loan from an Israeli bank, funds the 14.5 billion shilling model farm. The implementing agency is the National Irrigation Board, while the contractor is Green Arava Corporation from Israel. Israel is a global case study when it comes to turning dry areas into productive agricultural farms.
This area, I was told it's a semi-desert area, but with the water of the Galana River and our knowledge and your workers, we make it paradise.
So one of the key lessons from this project is that mechanization and irrigation in agriculture can be done, and that this can be replicated across the country. The government's aim is to provide the necessary infrastructure and encourage public-private partnerships in order to feed the future. Meanwhile, activity continues. This is how it all begins. Bush clearing. Up to now, 10,000 acres of land has been cleared for irrigation. The land set aside for the project was leased from the Agricultural Development Corporation, ADC. This is part of another 500 acres that is ready for planting. The implementers plan to do 2 seasons per year. Experts say the neglected semi-arid areas in Kenya have great potential for farming because the soils are virgin, and where irrigation is feasible, farming can be done all year round as compared to rain-fed agriculture. For KTN, I'm Alex Chamwada in Galana.
Interesting story there by Alex Chamwada, and that very interesting story leads us to our break, and we still have more that is coming, of course, including business news, sports news, and international headlines. That coming up next. Thank you very much for keeping it KTN News. Now, here at the Standard Group, our week began on a high note. KTN News fans will this week get to meet their favorite anchors, reporters, and show hosts during a one-week roadshow that kicked off at the Standard Group Center. The convoy will drive through Thika, Murang'a, Nyeri, Nanyuki, and Nyahururu, and Nakuru too.
Good. Naona Kiswahili kiko sawa kabisa. Umegi alidunanga kisogo. Specify, unajua kusema behind. Inaweza kuwa.
All the people that have supported us, want them to come out and meet their heroes. So on this track there'll be anchors who brought you the best shows with Case Files, Jichopevu, even writers of the Standard. So the audiences will get a chance to interact with their favorite journalists and their favorite newsmakers. Yes.
KTN News has a vision of East Africa and eventually the whole of the African continent, and as we realize that countries are increasingly becoming borderless in the sense of how they interact with other people. So KTN News taps into that reality that is developing in the world, where countries are increasingly interconnected. So East Africa is extremely interconnected. What's happening in Kenya, the Kenya shilling falling affects the Uganda shilling affects the Rwandan franc, and so on. So there is a way in which the region is so interconnected that the media naturally needs to fit into that space, and as trendsetters at the Standard Group, we really want to fit into that new space of ensuring that that dream that we talk about of the East African community of integration in the region is actually made a reality through this platform that we're providing. And so we are available in 11 countries in Eastern Africa, and we want to make sure that the peoples of Eastern Africa are able to speak to one another through this platform that we provide.
Watch out for the talent. Now, the new Nairobi County Commander Japhet Koome has put criminals on notice, saying that his team will stop at nothing less than a secure county. Koome, who replaces Benson Kibwe, is urging members of the public to volunteer information to the police to help smoke out criminals. Meanwhile, his predecessor Benson Kibwe has termed the Nairobi Westgate attack as a nightmare that he is not going to forget anytime soon. Kibwe, who has been appointed as Director of Operations of Kenya Police, feels that something better should have been done to avert the deadly attack.
Criminals, hear from me, get it from me. We have no time for you at all. We have a responsibility to maintain law and order. We have a responsibility to protect life and property. Therefore, wewe heshimu kitu cha mwingine. Usiende kuiba.
But I have one thing that I will go with as the director in charge of operations in Kenya Police, that it will still linger in my mind, that whether we could have done better the Westgate siege. We lost so many people at Westgate.
Right, and that's where we wind up this edition of KTN Newsdesk Part 1. Part 2 is coming up on KTN News. My name is Betty Kialo. Thank you very much for watching. See you tomorrow.